It's Extremadura day 1, and for my first day I've come to the plains looking for the bustards and sandgrouse amongst other things, and let's see how we get on. We're just waiting for the sun to rise. It's a little bit damp, but the hoopoes are already calling in the background, and I can hear a crested lark in the background as well. Well, we've just got back to the car, having spent all morning walking a trail across the plains, and it's been an incredibly successful morning. Perhaps not necessarily for the photography, but certainly for the birds. We saw several, well, I would think at least 10 great bustards. We saw 15 or 20 pin-tailed sandgrouse, some of which sat on the ground, and we saw those feeding in the field. They were a bit far to photograph, but I did get some flight shots, or hopefully. Let's see when they come out. We haven't seen little bustard yet. We started at a site earlier on this morning for that, and we didn't have any joy, and we weren't the only group there looking. And the real bonus was Spanish Imperial Eagle. Which is nesting in some eucalyptus trees. Again, we had good views, but a little distant for the photography. I'll see what my footage comes out with. Obviously a lot of larks and that crested and Calandra lark. Horn buntings on every post. We had a few bee eaters this morning, early on, and we bumped into a tour group. They were quite pleased that there were bee eaters around. They've been around for a few days and not seen any at all, so they must just be coming in. And the usual black kites and red kites. We saw a couple of griffin vultures and black vultures, or cinereous vultures I think they call them now, sat on the ground early on. So all in all, a very good morning birding. I'm going to head into Santa Marta now, grab myself a cup of coffee, and then head for a flight this afternoon. I've just stopped in a little village called Santa Marta, and I'm going to try and find somewhere to have a cup of coffee. But I came to a place just outside the town called El Mirador, and you've got Spanish sparrows nesting in the trees along the path, and just casually overhead are white storks and black vultures circling around. Right, I'm all fed and watered. Lovely lunch, basic but lovely, and now it started to cool down a little bit. Hopefully the haze will start to reduce over the fields, and I'm going to head to the next site and see what we see there. in the heat of the afternoon and there's not a lot of movement. I've come down to the river valley to see if there's anything in the bushes either side of the river. There's a couple of crag martins flying around the bridge. I suspect they're nesting underneath it, they keep disappearing there. And there's a grey wagtail on the river. But other than that, it's very quiet. It was fairly productive up on the Llano. There was a dead sheep conveniently next to the road, which the vultures were coming down to before they were scared off by some dogs. And we had black and griffin vulture there with a few black and red kite flying around. We did also get a booted eagle, a pale phase, although another group had seen a dark face booted eagle, and a couple of hoopoes. The nest boxes seem to be full of jackdaws up on in that area. They're supposed to be for the rollers, but it doesn't look as though the rollers have come in yet. We're now in Monfragüe National Park, and with any luck we'll have another good day. I have stopped briefly at the entrance to look at some oak woodland. Not a great deal of movement, lots of blue tits and great tits, a couple of missel thrushes. I had one brief view of a rock sparrow, chaffinch, hoopoo calling in the distance, and lots of Iberian magpies flying about. But let's head into the park and see what we can get. glad I brought my jacket. It's a beautiful day in Monforagüe. Clear blue skies, but there's quite a breeze and it's very cold. So while I'm up in the higher reaches, I've decided to put my jacket on. It's been a productive morning so far as a black kite flies past the window. I've had black stork on a nest, mating Egyptian vultures, and a little disappointing from a little hide that I visited. There were some great birds I saw from there, subalpine warbler and serin, heard a nightingale, goldfinch, but it wasn't very productive photographically. The birds tended to hide in the bushes and stay quite low. I got a few bits and pieces, but nothing exceptional. So I'm just at a viewpoint called La Mala Vuelta. A Mala Vuelta means the bad return or the bad bend, or it looks as though it's a windy bit of the park. And I've just seen an Egyptian vulture over the dam, a lot of house martins flying about, feeding, barn swallow, which reminds me I've got to add that to my list. Barn swallow. If you're wondering what software I'm using something called eBird. It's free software for the iPhone and for Android, and once I've completed the day, I submit my list and it's then on the web, and they use the data to monitor species numbers and movements. It's a very interesting site. It's worth a look at. But the software is great for noting down what you see each day. And well, what are we on? 26 species so far today, and it also tracks my journey. So I've been 2.5 hours bird watching so far, and I've done 4.88 miles. So it's logging exactly where I'm going, and recording the birds as I go. Anyway, I'm going to continue, head for the next spot. Could do with a cup of coffee. This morning I've come south of Merida to a site for black wheat here, and I've had to climb up near to the top of the rocky outcrop in order to get some good light, and hopefully when I see one, some better views. It's been a very successful morning so far, looking for black wheat here. At the first spot I found one, although it disappeared into the rocks and I hung around but it didn't reappear, so I moved on to the second site about half a mile further along the track, and there was a pair there which were very obliging, feeding on the rocks below me, and some great opportunities for taking some pictures. I'm going to head now into the centre of Merida, where apparently from the old Roman bridge you can look down on some reed beds and see things like little bittern, glossy ibis, purple gallinule, a few other water birds, purple heron. I've just been to the Roman bridge. There seems quite a lot of disturbance there, but lots of alpine swifts flying around. Glossy ibis on the little island. A couple of coot.